Hey everyone, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2024 GMC Canyon, we're going to be showing you how to install the Blue Ox diode wiring kit for towed vehicles. But before we do that, let's just take a moment. We'll check these out and make sure they're going to work for you. Before we jump right in, I do want to address one of the main questions that we get asked when it comes to setting up a vehicle to be flat towed, and that's what are the main parts that I'm going to need. So you're going to have a total of 5 main components. You'll have your base plate, your tow bar, your safety cables, your diode or tow bar wiring, as well as a supplemental braking system. What a diode wiring kit is going to do is send the lighting functions from the back of your motorhome to the back of your Canyon. And you'll get your left turn signal, your right turn signal, your brake lights, as well as your tail lights. So you have all of your bases covered there. Diode kits are what I recommend for pretty much any vehicle I set up to be flat towed. And I say it because once they're installed, you're not going to notice that they're there. And they're super easy to hook up when you are ready to actually plug into your motorhome and flat tow your vehicle down the road. There's 2 really popular kits that I personally have experience with on the Canyon. This Blue Ox one, and there's another kit made by Roadmaster. And honestly, between the 2, they're pretty similar to each other, especially how they fit on the Canyon. Really, I don't have a huge preference per se between the 2. I guess one thing to note with the Blue Ox that I kind of like is it comes with a little bit of extra wiring, which on a vehicle like the Canyon, being a longer truck, can be beneficial when it comes to actually getting these installed if your wiring does happen to fall short or something like that. One thing to note, this kit is kind of bare bones, meaning you'll get your diodes, your all the wiring and everything, and a lot of ins and outs to get it all set up, but you're not going to receive a 6-way round connector plug or an umbilical for that matter. So these are going to be something that you have to pick up separately if you don't happen to have them already. The ones that we're using today, it's a Blue Ox 6-way and the Blue Ox coiled cable. Really good matchup. It's going to work in just about any scenario. The one thing that I would recommend though, if you happen to have a tow bar that has channels in it that more or less act as a cable management system, designed to run wiring and stuff through there, then I would suggest picking up a straight type cable. That way you can properly utilize those channels and set everything up correctly. As far as, getting this hooked up when you're ready to flat tow, all you're gonna have to do is take that cable, plug it into the front of your truck, then to the back of your motorhome, and you're done as far as the electrical side of things go for your wiring. So pretty straightforward. There are some other kits out there. You might see magnetic lighting, things of that nature, which is fine, they work and stuff, but the issue is you have to set them up every single time you want to flat tow, and then take it all back apart when you're done, and then you got a big old box of wires and stuff that you have to store when not in use. So just a few more steps, and having a kit like the Blue Ox one here just simplifies it and makes it easy to set up and everything in between. So you can't really ask for too much more. As far as the installation goes, it's not that it's really complicated per se. It is time consuming though, just having to route wires from the front to the back and get hooked up to your tail lights and everything. But take your time, you should be in good shape. If this is something you're not comfortable doing or don't have the time or space to mess with it, I understand that. You can always use our dealer locator network, and hopefully that can help you find a shop in your neighborhood that can do something like this for you. But if you're doing it yourself, hang around, we'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation for our diode wiring, I'm doing this the same time that we have our fascia removed and that we're doing our base plate. It's just a little easier to route wires, but it can be done all put back together and everything. It's up to you. First thing you want to do though is grab the big bundle of wire that you got, take one end of it, and we're going to drop this down through the engine compartment. So here's where it comes out in our case, and this is going to get routed over towards the front where our connector plug will be located. Now in our particular application, we have a Blue Ox base plate. The connector plug bracket is attached to the fascia. So I wanted to have all this ready. That way we can get our fascia on, we'll push the wiring in through there, everything will be put together, and then we can get the connector plug hooked up to this. I was able to get the fascia on and everything like we talked about. And you can kind of see what I meant. The bracket that our connector will attach to is on the fascia, so that's why we had to do it that way. But I have our wiring here. You want to take the rubber boot, slide that on, then we're going to separate each wire from the next. So just carefully cut between them and then peel them back a few inches. And then what I like to do is recut the ends off a little bit. That way, just kind of gives us a fresh start if we nicked one of the wires and we were splitting them or something like that. Then we're going to take each end, strip the insulation back a little bit, and give that wire a twist. So I'll do that for the 3 remaining ends here. On the back of your connector plug, we're going to have several terminals. We're going to be using 4 of them, and they are labeled. Pretty tricky to see, but the letters are there. So this one here is TM for taillights, so the brown wire gets hooked to it. This is GD for ground, so the white wire goes there. This one is LT for left turn, so the yellow wire goes to that. And this one is RT for right turn, so the green wire gets plugged into that terminal. The way these work, they're just set screws. You want to back them out almost all the way. I try not to remove them completely because it's kind of a pain to get back in there. And so with that being TM, it'll be our tail light. Put that wire into place and tighten up the set screw. And you'll just work your way around it one by one until you have all the wires hooked up. Here's what it looks like once you have all the wires hooked up. And one thing that I do like to do once everything is complete and we know everything's working like it should is I'll come back in here and fill all these open areas up with silicone just to help prevent corrosion and things like that. So for the time being, we'll put the boot back over and secure this to our bracketry here. Back up in the engine compartment, we can take the rest of our bundle of wire and we can focus on getting the white wire grounded. And so what I did is just stripped it off of the rest of the bundle there, and I'm going to cut it to length. So all this white wire that is going just to the end of our bundle, I'm going to get that out of our way, hold on to it for later. We might end up using it. And this side, you know, the other end of this is what's connected to our connector plug at the front of our truck. And we need to strip the end back. And this is how we're going to make our electrical connections, whether it be a spade terminal, a butt connector, ring terminal, whatever the case may be, but we'll twist it. And then we can take a ring terminal, we'll put that over the end of the bare wire and crimp it down. And where we're going to ground this is going to be located on the driver's side here, just right in the corner. This post right here, that's what we're going to use as a ground. I already have some of our other braking system components grounded to it, and I like to try to ground everything at the same spot, but it doesn't really matter. I have a 10mm socket here. Can remove the bolt. Then you'll take the ring terminal, put the bolt through it, through any of the other grounds that need to be reattached. Get this started by hand. Get this snug back up. And what I'll go ahead and do now, the remaining portion of our wiring harness, that's going to have to get routed to the back of our truck and go up to the tail lights. So I'll go ahead and route it and show you the path that I took to get it back there. What our wiring is going to do inside the engine compartment, I just have it running around through here, and then I just dropped it straight down to the underside of our truck. And whenever you're doing wiring like this, do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts along the way. Underneath the truck, this is where our wiring drops down, and I just have it following these factory lines here. I use some zip ties along the way to keep it secure. That's just going to get routed towards the back. And then at about this point, it's going to go over the frame and get routed along the outside portion of it. Here's where our wiring kind of comes to the outside portion of our frame. And there's some tubing, factory tubing here. I just followed that along the back, where it just continues this way. Here's where the wiring continues to get routed along through here. And then right here in this area, what I did was separate each individual wire. And you want to take the brown wire, and what we're going to do is cut it, and then you're going to strip this end back and give it a twist, and then you want to grab the remaining piece, that you cut. Strip that in back too. And then with this kit, you're going to get a long piece of brown wire as well, like an extra piece. Strip one of those ends back. And what we can do here, let's do it this way. You take two ends, twist them together, and grab a butt connector. I'm using a heat shrink one. The ends will seal up, help protect against corrosion a little bit better. Put that on and crimp it down. And coming out of the other end here, take that remaining piece, and I'm just going to double it over to make the wire a little bit thicker, give it a better bite into the butt connector. Crimp it down, and with these heat shrinks, you can come back with your heat source and seal up the ends. Here's what we got going on here. I used some electrical tape up our connector there, and the little piece of brown wire that we had that was from our original harness here, I taped that to our yellow wire, and these are going to run up to the driver's side taillight pocket. Then that new piece of brown wire that we put in the butt connector, I started to tape that up with our original green wire. And in the kit, they give you an additional piece of green wire to use as an extension. So I used a butt connector there to extend it. And that's because the brown and green are going to get routed over towards the passenger side. But I'll do that in a moment. But with these trucks, it's almost easier since we will have to remove the tail lights. It's almost easier to get them disconnected under here first since we're already underneath the truck. The tail light connector is going to be right here in this area. It's kind of secured up in there a little bit. I just pulled it down so we can actually see what we're doing here. The way you want to disconnect these, you got this little red tab. You can push back on it and then down on the center of that tab, and that'll release it. I'm going to do the same thing on the passenger side as well. I got our green and brown wire routed over to the passenger side. This comes along through here, kind of behind our trailer hitch, up along through here, and I kind of just have it hanging right here in this area for now. And what we can do, we'll let this sit. We'll go up top and get our lights removed. To get the lights out, drop your tailgate. There's going to be 2 fasteners holding in place, and we can use a T15 Torx bit. We can grab our light, pull straight back on it. You're already disconnected, so should be good there. I think I'm kind of hung up on some wires underneath though, so might have to go under there and free this up. So able to pull the light out, and indeed down here by the connector there was a zip tie holding this onto another harness. Whether yours will be set up like that or not, it's hard to say, but I just clipped the zip tie, pulled it out. So you know, while you're down there disconnecting this, it might be worth taking a look at the harness, make sure there's not any zip ties or anything like that. That way you can just pull it right out. But I'll set this off to the side and do the same thing to get the passenger side one removed. With the tail light set off to the side, I was able to reach, you know, down underneath the truck, take our wiring, and just push it up into the tail light pocket. From there, what I did was strip back each end of the wiring and take one of the included spade terminals and crimp one onto each end. Come over to the workbench here. We have our tail light, right, and the wiring has some of this plastic loom on it. I peeled off and removed some of the tape to expose the wires. And the factory wires that we're going to be working with will be the blue one with the white stripe, and that is going to control our stop and turn signal. And then the factory brown wire with the blue stripe, that is going to control our taillight signal. And so what we'll do, we'll cut those in half and strip back all the ends. Each end is going to receive one of these blue spade terminals here. Once I have these set up, we can get our diodes plugged in. I got all 4 of the ends crimped onto the wires, and then I just put our wire loom back, kind of taped everything up to make it more manageable. And as far as the diodes go, you can take the diode and the side that has a single terminal, you can plug that into this end of the wiring harness. And we're just going to go color for color. So the other end of the brown wire will go to that part of the diode to complete the circuit. And the same thing for the blue and white there. I'll grab our light now, kind of start to feed our factory wire back down. And then we can hook up our new wires. So since the new brown wire will be the taillight signal, we'll hook that to the factory brown and blue wire. And since the blue and white will control our stop and turn, we'll hook our new yellow wire into that diode. With everything hooked up, I taped up the diodes to our wiring harness just to secure them. And we'll reinstall the tail light the opposite way that we removed it. And once you have that secure, don't forget to go back underneath and plug it right back in. Over on the passenger side, we pretty much did the same exact thing, even though the factory wire colors are going to be the same and have the same function. So factory brown wire with the blue stripe, tail light signal, our new brown wire goes into that diode. Factory blue wire with the white stripe being our stop and turn, our new green wire gets plugged into that diode. So it's all set up the same, and we'll get this light reinstalled as well. It is a good idea to test the wiring to make sure that it's working properly. So I'm just hooked up to a test box here, which is simulating a motorhome. You can use your coach, but keep in mind if that has issues on its own, it might mislead you into thinking it's something you did on the GMC side. But with that in mind, we'll run through all of our functions. We'll try out our taillights, our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brake lights. With that all done though, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Blue Ox diode wiring kit for towed vehicles on our 2024 GMC Canyon.